Okay, now it's going live for Facebook.
Welcome to the Nerd Show. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
So John's not joining us again this week. Hopefully he'll be back in a few weeks. But today we are going to talk about Black Panther and the newest episode of Loki, episode 5. But we're going to start off our conversation with Black. Did I say Black Panther at the beginning?
Yeah, you
Sorry.
did.
Black Widow. We're going to talk about Black Widow, which came out today. And we're going to talk about Loki episode 5. And we'll start talking about Black Widow the way that we usually do, just our spoiler-free thoughts about the movie, which we both saw today, and then we can get into spoiler talk about the movie before we move on to the newest episode of Loki. So, Colin, what did you think of the Black Widow movie?
Wow. There's a lot to talk about. It was on our list of most anticipated for 2021, and at the time I said that it was because yes, there were some trailers at that time, but we didn't see much at that time because it's been delayed for so long, and and also just that they were out as whether or not it was going to be on Disney Plus and stuff. And eventually they kind of did the theater and Disney Plus thing, same with Warner Brothers. So they did this very similar thing. So non-spoiler review, it's kind of like what I did on my vacay from the Avengers. So I found that to be very interesting story in itself. That was my kind of like first main impression of it. Second thing, Florence Pugh. Wow, just breakout star. I'll talk more about her. I just think that she's amazing. I think that she's like, she's been on the radar of many people in Hollywood for a while now. But wow, she's just really really good in this movie. And then another thing was about the forgettable Marvel villain. That's kind of like a trope that's been happening for all the MCU to follow. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Plot holes, MCU plot holes from previous movies got filled, some of them better than others in terms of the filling part. And then there's a really solid post-credit scene afterwards that kind of set a lot of things up for later on. And then, but overall, pretty enjoyable. Just try, in terms of rankings, in terms of the MCU movies, I would say it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's probably not like better or worse than any of the other ones before, but yeah, those are my kind of like non-spoiler impressions of Black Widow so far.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I would recommend the movie. I don't know that I had any major issues with it. Like you said, I would not necessarily rank it near the top of the. I guess we're at 24 movies now, at the top of the 24 movies, but it's not at the bottom either. I enjoyed what they did. The scope is somewhat constrained. Without getting into spoilers, I think many people know that it takes place after Civil War, which was several movies back. So the repercussions of the movie can, by the dint of it being a kind of a flashback movie is constrained. That being said, I enjoyed the acting and the characters, mostly, as you said, Florence Pugh's performance. I think, again, from the trailers, you can see that she is playing against Scarlett Johansson as a widow as well. And it's interesting to see how they differentiated their personalities. Because what they could have done is just said, their personalities are exactly the same, but they're completely different, and we can talk about the specifics of how they're different, and how they approach the world differently, which I appreciated, because you didn't. I mean, it would have been boring if Florence Pugh was written or acted like a mini Natasha. So I appreciated that they developed her as her own distinct character.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rachel Weisz had a little bit less to do in the movie, but she was a good addition. And I'm blanking on his name right now.
David Harbour.
David Harbour. He was hilarious. Yeah. He was silly and hilarious in the movie. I mean, as you said, the villain is somewhat forgettable. Again, this is going to get too much into spoilers about whether or not we will see villains or the villain in this movie again in the future. We may or may not, because Marvel tends to dispose of their villains. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that they did dispose of their villains. I'm just saying that's you. I don't think we've ever seen a villain come back in an MCU movie yet. Not all of them have died. I think like the Spider-Man movie, very specifically, because he doesn't. I mean, it's Spider-Man. He's a child hero. I think that's why they didn't off him in that movie. But pretty much all the other villains, except for maybe Ghost and Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think everyone else went away. It's very unclear whether or not Hela died. But anyway, I'm going. Yeah. I'm too much of a tangent. Generally speaking, I enjoyed the movie for the main four players. The people around them on the periphery are, to a certain degree, better or worse or forgettable. But I enjoyed the movie, and it was very great to actually get back to the movie theater. We had the two options for seeing this movie was going to the theater or seeing it on Premium on Demand, which is what you saw it on Premium on Demand. I saw it in the theater. Mm-hmm. We rented a theater to see it, and just invited a bunch of friends. And it was awesome after not being in the theater for over a year to see it in the theater, and actually have to wait for all the credits to roll to see the after credit scene, because we haven't had to do that in over a year. So that was the cool experience that I didn't think that I missed, but apparently I did. So.
Yeah, I skipped through it.
Yeah,
I just went right through it.
Yeah.
So it's that. Yeah, that's the beauty of it being on Disney Plus, is that I could go rewind and just kind of relive some of the more amusing parts of the movie. And just definitely a different viewing experience. I did a review with John about F9. And so I did go to the movie theater to watch F9. So, but it was very small. It was like maybe four, like it was me, a friend, and two other people in the movie theater, because we watched it really early in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, very different experience. It haven't been kind of like full-fledged like those times in which, you saw in some of the previews from Marvel, with the Endgame, the Endgame audience. It's not like anything like that, but at least it's kind of like a soft reopening in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so I think we have to continue talking about this. We actually have to get into spoiler talk. So if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. I think we both recommend the movie. After this point of no return, we're going to actually start spoiling the movie. So I'm not sure how to run through this. You want to go from the beginning to the end, or you want to jump around, or the specific things that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I think I kind of split it off into two things, kind of like what I liked and what I didn't like, and then just kind of go off from there. What I liked, again, from the non-spoiler part, I liked Florence Pugh's performance. She was amazing in this. She just stole pretty much the movie. I mean, all of the the humorous lines, all of the human motion lines, all of the, even some of the action scenes. I mean, she basically just carried the movie for the most part. With kind of from all three levels of the kind of like the emotion, the funny parts, the the more kind of like human connection part, and also with the action. So I think that she is going to be a big star, and I think that it will behoove Marvel to kind of lock her up for a while. I know that she's probably going to be very, very busy because she has had a lot before. I think she was in Little Woman, I think 2 years ago, a couple of years back. So she's really very, very talented.
I think she was nominated for the Academy Award for that, right, or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, she did. So, I mean, she's very talented. I think that, I think that she's going to have a lot of opportunity and probably going to leverage, like basically a big payday because of her performance. And so, whether or not Marvel is going to play hardball and say no, we're not going to pay you, it's going to have to get to that point. And I think that, in a lot of ways, where there's been a lot of controversy around Brie Larson, casting of Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, I think that Marvel really hit it out of the park with Florence Pugh as Yelena. So I think that's just major thing, major props to her acting ability, but also just like major props to Marvel for identifying talent like hers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm largely dismissive of the controversy around Brie Larson. It's political. It has nothing to do with her ability. She's an Academy Award nominee, if not winner. I think she made it. Didn't she win?
Yeah, she won.
She's talented. So I mean, the people who have issues with Brie Larson, it's their own personal issues. But yeah, Florence was great in this movie. She was as funny, if not more funny than his name is blanking. Harper.
David Harbour.
David Harbour. She had a lot of funny lines, which is like I said in the non-spoilers part, was it differentiates her rather from Natasha, because Natasha's very stern. She's very close to the vest, whereas she is kind of hard on her sleeve. She was the most nostalgic for that time when they were undercover, because she was the only one who didn't know that they were undercover. She just thought that was her family. So she's the most hurt, and that they all are also so dismissive about that time. I mean, in their speech they're so dismissive, but individually they break down because she cares about it, and they admit that they actually love that time as well. So it's she definitely is the emotional center of the movie. I don't think it works without her. I don't know. She definitely got some action scenes, but they gave Natasha all the giant set piece action scenes because it's her movie.
Correct.
But she definitely you could see that they're setting her up as the next Black Widow, because I don't know that there's going to be necessarily a lot of negotiation going on, because in the after credit scene, Yelena shows up, and so it seems like they at least have her for another movie. If not, she's going to show up probably in the Hawkeye show just later this year. We'll probably see her later this year in the Hawkeye show.
Yeah, that's already been confirmed for the most part, that she is going to be in there, and for the post-credit scene, it does kind of bring that up. Kind of again, Valentina is kind of like the pulling all the strings behind the scenes, and kind of setting her up as that kind of grayer Nick Fury character.
I was gonna say gray Nick Fury before you said it, but I was thinking to myself, that doesn't make any sense, because Nick Fury is already pretty gray. He's not.
Grayer. I would say grayer. I would say grayer Nick Fury character.
Yeah. So we'll definitely see her, and apparently as we'll see Valentina. I forget the rest of her. What's in the middle? I just know the end is De La Fontaine. Valentina, the Countess Valentina de la Fontaine. We'll see her more because we saw her in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We see her here. We'll probably see her in in Hawkeye. we've talked about this in the past when we were talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There's speculation that they're trying to either put together a Dark Avengers team or a Thunderbolts team. So they're making Julia Louis-Dreyfus the linchpin of those teams. It doesn't look like. It definitely doesn't look like what she's doing is necessarily above board, because why are you going after Clint? He's still an Avenger. He helped save the world, if not the universe. When he showed up, sorry, he didn't disappear. So because he went back went back in time. I think blaming Natasha's death on him is dubious. I don't think anyone in the Avengers blames her death on him, but it's probably I don't know what the information outside what's been shared with the rest of the world, because the rest of the world think Steve is dead. Steve they think he's on the moon and this. So outside of the core group of the Avengers, I think a lot of people don't know what went on, and they're speculating about a lot of things. So it's possible that she could credibly lie to Yelena about what happened to Natasha, and she would believe it.
Yeah, and I think that also the other thing that kind of dropped a hint was that Yelena was saying in the post-credits scene about how she's kind of desperate. Valentina is kind of desperate to kind of seek her out for jobs. So that's kind of like already setting up some type of thing during the blip times, where she probably was doing the same. Probably it's doing some more kind of like secretive type of stuff. Very similar to what Clint was doing at that time, but very on the covert and more covert than what they're doing. So, it kind of established that already, that she was already doing that type of stuff. And because they did talk about how that might tie. I'm just speculating that it might even tie into the fourth Captain America movie. I mean, all of this is going to get all tied up in some ways to that, or maybe even some sort of, Widow sequel where they combine together. That the storyline is going to start combining with each other in some type of way, because at the end you saw that Melina and Red Guardian and the Widows are all still alive. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see where we're gonna take that story and how they're gonna develop that, whether or not it's gonna be Disney Plus or whether it's gonna be some Marvel movie, or is it gonna be tied into Captain America 4?
Yeah, I don't. So it's hard to tell where Valentina is going to show up again. I think what's more likely to me in my head, but I'm not. My name's not Kevin Feige. Is that they'll create a series out of this, and I don't know. Sam might have his own adventure or whatever that may or may not be tied to Valentina in the next movie. I know that they're writing. I know they're writing it right now. Malcolm Spellman, who did Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think is writing Captain America 4 already. So I guess he has ideas. He did introduce that character. It's hard to tell because things are out of sequence, right, from when they were supposed to be released. It's hard to tell whether or not using that character was his idea, or he was told that she was going to show up in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier movie, and he could use that character, because I think the Black Widow movie was supposed to come out first.
It was.
So yeah. So
and it would make sense, because if it came out in May 2020, then you will be introduced to Valentina at there, and then you'll get to see her in Falcon Winter Soldier, which was supposed to be the first Disney Plus thing that came out, and then that will be subsequently followed by Hawkeye, later this year. So it would have made sense, but it didn't really kind of mess it up that much in terms of continuity. I think that people did kind of know where things are if you're like kind of into it.
Honestly, I think that they probably recut that scene for Black Widow. They probably had everything else locked because it doesn't make sense outside of the context of not seeing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because if you haven't seen the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just some random woman shows up with purple hair to give her a mission, and you don't know who she is. She actually introduces herself in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so you get a little bit more with her.
That is true. That is true.
So if they were supposed to be swapped, they probably reshot the end of this movie to make it clear that you really need to go and see the Falcon and Winter Soldier to understand who she is. And you, I guess, if you're not in the know, I think Marvel's banking on the fact that you're going with friends and you're going to say, who is that, and they're going to say, oh, you have to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I think they're definitely trying to sell not just the movies now, but the larger Disney Plus shows as well through the movies.
Right. I think that's definitely very smart of them. I mean, it's all connected universe in so many ways. So it does force you to kind of even go back to even watch the Avengers. I mean, just going back to the whole dialogue between Loki, which is happening right now, which we'll talk about, and Black Widow. The scene that they had about Dracov's daughter, and so that goes into. I mean, they did a whole thing about that here when I talked about a non-spoiler part about plot hole. I mean, that was kind of big. That was like a big thing that we wanted to know what was going on with Black Widow, and they kind of did a pretty good job of filling that hole in, and just bringing that up. So it does, if you go back to watch that scene from the Avengers, it does mean a lot more, and there's a lot more context involved because of the filling in that is being done in the movie with Dracov's daughter. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty brilliant on their end to kind of like say, hey, go back. That's what we're talking about. But now we're filling that in there, and I think that was actually one of the things that I like. I will talk about one of the things I didn't like later on, but that was definitely one of the things I did like.
Well, I mean, I think you and I maybe read that differently because the Avengers happened before this chronologically in the chronology within the universe, right? So it actually happened like years before this, and then because this happens right after Civil War. So I think what they were doing was showing that she is the spy that she's always been, and she was just playing this man against himself. She gets men to talk. That's at the very beginning of the Avengers. She was called in by Fury, and she said, "Why are you calling me in? I got this guy. He's about to tell me everything." And he's like, "I not tell you everything," because he doesn't know that he's talking. And then she does the exact same thing with Loki later in the film, and she just does it again with this guy, even though he's the one who's running the thing. He's apparently. She understands him well enough to understand his ego and the fact that maybe he doesn't want to be in the shadows, and he wants her to respect him, respect what he created. So it was definitely an interesting callback, definitely to that movie, and her skills that have nothing to do with her fighting ability. So yeah. The other thing that was a bit of a callback, or sorry, not a callback, but a tie-in, is how the movie ended with her getting a Quinjet, because what we see at the end of Civil War. So the end of this movie connects to the after credit scene in Civil War, because I guess throughout the this entire movie, Ant-Man and Sam and I forget who else. Clint all of them are in the raft. On the raft, right? So I guess she connected with Steve to break them out, which is cool. which is
Yeah.
which is cool tie in. They're definitely trying to connect all the pieces there. So you said, what else did you? Well, let's before you get to what else did you like? What was the what were some of the things that you didn't like, or one of the things you didn't like?
Well, one of the things that I didn't like was going back to to filling in the holes. The thing that I didn't like was the Budapest thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Budapest thing was very played up in Avengers. There was a banter about it between Clint and Natasha about that. I just felt as though they didn't do enough of that. I mean, yes, they did that. They did that flashback with him, with Dracov's daughter. But I just felt that there would have been a lot more than just that. It was kind of like reminded me of the Florkin with Nick Fury. It's like last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye, and then it was because of the Florkin. So it's kind of like in terms of that, it's kind of a little bit anticlimactic for me. I was like, I didn't really feel it with the Budapest because they kind of played it as though it was like some big like maybe misunderstanding or some weird thing that happened. But it actually became much more serious and it came kind of like deep. So like that part of it, I just felt it just kind of took me away from the movie a little bit.
So like, as they make these prequels, there's always that the risk of them doing like a solo moment where they explain something that really no one was asking for to be explained. Like in the Solo movie, the guy he goes up to the thing and he says, "Oh, you're by yourself, so I'm going to give you the last name Solo." No one wanted that, and it was stupid.
Right.
I think that's on one end of the spectrum. I as far as filling in backstory, Nick Fury's eye, I don't think is as bad as the Solo thing.
No, it's not.
But
it's not.
And I think this is better than Nick Fury's eye. I think you.
It's better. I agree.
I never took it as like a I never took it as like a jokey thing when they were talking about it. It was they brought it up in Ultron, I believe, and when they were fighting all the Ultrons, and Natasha says this is just like, I think they brought it up in Ultron.
They brought it up in Avengers and also in Endgame. I don't know if they did in Ultron. They did have they may have been in the car when they were fighting. Like he was talking about the dining room and things like that, but he may have brought it up at that time. I don't quite remember.
Was it Avengers?
It was Avengers.
The original Avengers. Yeah. So I think the whole line was that this is just like Budapest, and he says, "You and I remember Budapest very, very differently."
Right.
So my sense was that it was crazy, right? It was not that it was a jokey thing, and from what she explained, it was sort of crazy. It was like they were fighting a lot of they had to kind of camp out for months to get to their target, and so it was a lot of difficult work, which is not the same. Like I said, and I'm on Clint's side there. As difficult as she explained it, it wasn't as nearly as crazy as aliens coming down from the sky. So she definitely does remember it differently than he did.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, they did mention that they were hiding in the vent for 2 days. So maybe he was remembering about that time. Maybe like they were hiding in the vent for 2 days playing tic-tac-toe. So maybe then now that I see, maybe it was kind of, I don't know, maybe it was more subtle than I realized when I first kind of encountered it when I watched the Avengers. I thought, but anyways,
they explained it a couple times actually. It's not like a throwaway. It's not a throwaway thing like the Nick Fury eye thing. It's not a throwaway thing like the Solo thing. She explains it when they get away from Taskmaster and the Widows, when they're like drinking beer or whatever. Then they maybe. Wait, sorry. I think maybe she explains it before that. She explains it before that. She explains it before that. Then she explains it again when they're drinking beer because Yelena confronts her about leaving out information, the fact that she killed his daughter. So they definitely told instead of they told instead of showing. And in general, you want to show instead of telling, but I think it would have pulled focus in the movie to have a flashback within this prequel with Clint showing up. So I think they kind of split the difference. They had a little bit of a flashback, but only the flashback that would pertain to what she had to do, the decision that she had to make to blow that child up to get the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of blowing the child up, that leads us to Taskmaster. So,
yeah.
I mean, yes, Taskmaster in the comics is very different from this version of Taskmaster. I think that there's definitely some people that really enjoy the action scenes. It's probably some of the best action scenes in the movie, but maybe the reveal was kind of maybe for people might have been thrown off. I actually did not mind it too much. I think it made sense in the overall scheme of things. But yeah, I recognized her. She actually played, she actually played one of the Bond ladies from the second Bond movie, the new ones from Daniel Craig. So, so it was very interesting to kind of see her again, in this role, and I kind of figured that she would have a kind of like an unknown role because I was like, oh, she's in this movie? That's interesting. And then didn't see her for the whole thing. And I was like, oh, then Taskmaster, then if that's the case. So like I said, I didn't mind it too much. Not, I know that people on the internet may have some mixed feelings about the whole thing. But yeah, I think it made in the scheme of the story, it made sense as to why Taskmaster was who she was. So that's kind of my take on it.
So I think a lot of people were speculating that Taskmaster was going to be OT, Fagbenle. I'm pronouncing his last name incorrectly, but he's also on The Handmaid's Tale. He's the father or the husband on The Handmaid's Tale for people who can't place his face who saw the movie. But yeah, he's definitely not Taskmaster master, and the way that he's introduced in the movie from the beginning as her fixer, it's clear that that's not going to be his role, because it wouldn't make. I mean, I guess it could have convolutedly made it him, but it wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever. As soon as we actually should understand what his role is in the movie, he's kind of like a cue to her in this movie. And I mean, the banter with them back and forth was nice as well. I mean, you can kind of see their affection for each other. It was it was kind of like a not necessarily exactly drop in place replacement for the banter that she has with Clint, but you can see that they have a long history together, and whereas I think she's more open about the fact that she has affection with Clint. Maybe this is the first time that she mentioned that she has affection for him by the end of this movie. I mean, I liked his role. I actually would like to see him show up again because it seems like he has a bit of a relationship with Yelena as well, because he let her stay at the flat for free and stuff like that. So, I don't know. So like, because we are a newish channel, we don't get to see these movies early. So I did see some reviews earlier this week. I feel like at this point in internet culture, a bunch of reviewers are reactionarily tempering their own reaction. They're reactionarily tempering their own reviews based upon what the outraged males might say about the movie, and I don't really care. It's about I feel I feel the same way as I do about the outraged people about Brie Larson. The reason that they're upset about what she has to say has more to say about them than it has to say about her. If you have an issue with I, I'm not really attached to Taskmaster. I don't know who possibly could be. I mean, I think he's a cool concept within the within the Marvel universe, the 616, the actual comics. But I mean, I'm not really that attached to him as a character. He's not that fleshed out as a character. What they decided to do with him, making him the daughter who's been brainwashed and kind of patched back together is not a big deal. I'm not sure what that is.
It's okay.
I'm gonna try to stop whatever it is though.
No problem. So yeah, I think definitely I can hear what you're saying, Nathan, with that situation, with Brie Larson, and I think there's a lot of kind of reactionary talk, but also I think it's also something about how it's not just reactionary, whether or not you want to be right on a theory, or whether or not you want to be you want to just kind of like say, oh, I think predict. Well, I think that's definitely something that we at this channel kind of has some advantage, because we are kind of like, we don't get the advanced screenings, we don't get the advanced previews or anything like that. We just get all of that type of information, just like as an audience, and so it's very important to kind of just take a step back and not be so kind of reactionary, and just kind of let it soak in for a little bit, because sometimes we always want that kind of instant reaction towards things, and sometimes because of that instant reaction, or that quick fix, or that quick review, then that kind of like sells the movie, whether or not you sell the movie or not. So yeah, I think that sometimes it a little bit, it has to do with trying to be right and try to predict something to be right. And then sometimes it's also like having that quick reaction and then basically owning the internet with that reaction. So, I think that we have that advantage of being like regular people, not having advanced screenings. So we don't necessarily need to kind of like dive right into it and have those knee-jerk reactions. Hmm.
Sorry, I think my audio was down there. I think that a lot of the reactionary issues, or the expectation of the reaction from the internet, is that there is because a male character was swapped out for a woman, and I think that there are enough female characters enough male characters in this movie. So there are definitely some bad guys. Yeah. We were just talking about OT in his role, but also Red Guardian. He's a good guy as well. So there are enough males in this movie that, I mean, unless you're very, very you need a guy front and center for a movie to work, even if the main character or the superhero is a female. And again, I think that's more about you than it is about the movie. I don't see what the issue people would have, or what the complaint people would have on that on that score is.
Yeah, and I think that it's, in the context of the story, it worked, and I think that it was pretty smart of them, and pretty creative and clever of them to do it from that standpoint. And so, I liked it. I didn't have any issues with it. I think that it's more power to people to kind of be creative about different characters and things within Marvel Comics, and not just be so rigid as to like, and like you said, Taskmaster is not. Yeah, he imitates other people's fighting skills. Sure, great, awesome. But is he like in the top pantheon of like Marvel supervillains? No, he's not. He's definitely not. He's in Spider-Man PS4. Yes, I know. He's in a few cartoons. He's Captain America and Iron Man, but it's nothing big. Not a big villain.
I don't even know if he shows up in the Avengers cartoon. I know he showed up in the '90s Spider-Man cartoon, because that's the first time I saw him.
He was in also the Iron Man Captain America. There was like an Iron Man Captain America cartoon as well. It was a non-Avengers.
Like it was a one-off movie.
Yeah, it's like one of those one-off movies. Exactly.
Yeah, he's not a very well defined villain like, say, Baron Zemo or like Doctor Doom. So
right.
Even I think Mephisto is more of a defined villain, and they twisted him. They didn't make him exactly the same as in the comics. So I don't have any issue with what they did with Taskmaster. What people might have an issue with is the way that it resolved with her. It's unlikely that she's going to show up again, and this is what I was talking about in the spoiler free part of the conversation, whether or not the villain is going to show up again. And the villain that I was talking about was her, not her father. Her father very clearly was
pretty much dead. Yes,
was incinerated. But I don't know if she's going to show up as a villain again, because they basically wrote her like they wrote Ghost and Ant-Man and Wasp, where she was a misunderstood villain. Like there's no reason for her to go back to, I don't know, villainous things. Which, I don't know that much about the history of Taskmaster, but what I do know that he trained, because of his skills, he's trained some heroes as well. So maybe that'll be her role in the future, because she has that mimicking ability. So I don't know.
Right.
And I don't even remember from the comics whether or not his ability to mimic was. I definitely know that it wasn't cybernetic, but I don't know if it was like a mutant ability or if it was just like, because there are heroes within the Marvel universe that have abilities, and they're not necessarily because they're a mutant, like Peter Parker. His ability is through the radioactive spider.
Right.
So I don't remember if it was just like, he was born with a mimetic memory and he could just mimic all everything that he saw, or if it was something else. But yeah, I can see her coming back as a great character, or even a good person, and people might have an issue with that. I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that we should trust Marvel by this time, and just kind of like just let them kind of create those stories and compelling stories. And I think that the story itself was actually very compelling, and they did a pretty good job of it in this movie about that. Yeah. One thing that I do want to say about just kind of like it doesn't segue to anything, but like about the car chase. I know that the car chase has appeared on TV multiple times. I mean, even you would think that you get tired of the car chase, but I didn't get tired of it. I mean, I actually did like watching it again and again and again, because I think there were just so many good beats. Just the interchange between Natasha and Yelena was really good. There was the kind of like the part where she said, I'm just trying to drive away from everybody, and they kind of edited what she said. In the
trailer,
in the trailers, they edited what she said. It's not really what she said in the movie. So it's kind of good they kind of held back on that. But one part that I didn't like about it was that it got a little bit too Mission Impossible. That and also the final act, in that how did everyone survive?
Yeah,
I mean, they're like they survived, like except for the villain. They died, but everyone else lived.
Yeah,
and it's like, the car crash. They went down a flight of stairs. They went down a flight of stairs, flipped several times, and then like I'm like, how the heck did they survive that? And Yelena was the only one who was bleeding from like her right arm, and that was it. And I was like, what's going on there? And also the third act, also like they're flying through debris. They have parachutes on, but they're flying. But like the debris could hit them randomly. Like they didn't hit one piece of debris. Did not hit them randomly. I mean, so a little bit too cartoonish in that regard. That I really, that was a little bit too much for me. I think.
I think all these movies require a suspension of disbelief, but but there's a certain point where it becomes ridiculous, and those two portions were a little bit ridiculous. So I'm not a fan of the fast movies. That's why you guys did the review without me, because I was never it was never going to be top of my list. But I have heard that the characters in those movies are similarly like superheroes that are even more super than the superheroes that showed up in Marvel movies, because nothing can kill them, whereas in the past Natasha and everyone, even Iron Man or Captain America, seem vulnerable to certain things, right? But those two scenes seem like out of a Fast and the Furious movie, basically. The car was blown up, that could have killed him. Then it flipped. Yes. Then it flipped and it skid. That could have killed him. Then it fell down. Yes. It went down a bunch of stairs into the subway. That could have killed him. So,
and I'm like, how do they survive that? I'm like, her seatbelt's on. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that she doesn't die from that. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous, and also the flying through the air, jumping from the platform, because I don't know what her. Well, that's not true. She jumped off. And her plan was, okay, I have a parachute, but where it became ridiculous when Taskmaster came after her, because she let her go, and then they started jumping from the debris. And again, if she had super soldier reflexes, or if she was Spider-Man, sure, but she's a human, so a regular human. So
that didn't make any sense to me. That really took me away from it, and again, it's more than a nitpick, but it's I think that that they really need to get away from that type of thing. I mean, people would argue that the Hulk, not the Hulk, War Machine and Rocket would have died under all that rubble in Avengers Endgame. Yeah, I mean that's but in the grand scheme of things, that was a small bit of the whole entire movie, whereas these were like two key scenes in the movie. So I just think that because of that, it does kind of like it does lose points for me in terms of the believability factor. I mean, So
to your point, they linger on this a lot longer than they lingered on Rocket and Rhodey surviving the collapse of the building, because buildings do collapse and sometimes do people survive that, depending on how it collapsed. And it's not like it wasn't like a big part of it. They kind of move on to the fact that I forget the name of the aliens that are coming after them in the rubble that went after them.
Oh, those was it? I don't remember. I don't remember, but I know who you're talking about. It's the ones that were in Wakanda.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of shift from how do they survive this to they have to get out of here and evade these guys. So that's more of the focus of that scene than the fact that a building fell on them and they survived a building falling on them. So Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't. Again, I don't know if it's a nitpick either. It's not a major flaw with the movie though. It's not like I don't watch the movie because of that. But
Right.
it was a more cartoonish element of the movie that made me think immediately of like, okay, now we're not in Marvel land. We're in the Fast and the Furious franchise now.
Yeah,
So
and I'll be very very careful if I was Marvel to not get too deep into that and to like really. I mean that is a very it's not a concern. Let's see what happens with the other movies that are coming up. But if they kind of go into that kind of realm, I think that you're going to lose a lot of people because that's not what fans really want like the Marvel Cinematic Universe for. So
yeah,
yeah,
there are definitely stakes in the movies, and I don't think Natasha's coming back in any kind of unless they do more flashback movies like going
hmm
forward. Like there's no so there are stakes, right? They actually these people seem like they're actually in peril, right?
right,
So if it seems like they're invulnerable, even the regular humans, and you don't even I mean, the people who have super strength or super abilities, you explain you within universe, it makes sense because of their abilities. But if the people with regular who are regular humans can't get hurt, I mean,
hmm
what are the stakes? Now
right,
the stakes in this movie were already a little bit depressed because we know that this happened before, and we know that she's going to show up.
correct,
She's going to show up later, so it's not like she's going to die. Uh, uh, but anyone else could have died in this movie. But it seemed like not only she was super, but also Yelena was super, given how the car scene played out.
hmm
So
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
One other thing before I think one other final point about the movie that I mean, they need to be careful about this. This is the third movie with mind control. So mind control again, another plot device. And I can understand from the context of what they're trying to say here. It is an allegory to human trafficking that they're trying
Right,
to
right. I think that
loosely make with that, but at the same time, it's like another mind control type of a trope, plot device. Yeah, they just need to be very careful about that because again, you don't want to keep rehashing other plot devices from other movies. I mean, we know Bucky had that. We know that Loki did that in the Avengers. So just have to be kind of like you're walking a fine line when you're going back to that well again of mind control.
yeah, I didn't bump up against that. It wasn't. I didn't have as much of an issue with that. I don't know. Just because I just from reading comics, it's just a thing that comes up a lot, and you just
Mm,
take it something that could actually happen. Um, it happens a lot in the comics because comics basically are like soap operas. So
hmm
there's certain tropes that are going to show up over and over again, uh, and that's fine unless as long as you do it differently. I think Bucky's thing was sort of he was mind controlled in a very specific way,
hmm
um, uh, uh, and it wasn't like systematic across a whole organization. I think
hmm
even the mind control that Loki was doing with the Soul Stone, that was
hmm
also very selective. Like it's using the Soul Stone to mind control people, and it wasn't like that wasn't the main plot, or if that wasn't the main focus of his objective, like mind controlling people. The main focus of his objective was mind controlling people, so he could get the Shatari to overrun the world, right? And I don't think it was really the main focus of Winter Soldier either. The main focus of that was Hydra's launching the ships, whereas the main focus of this movie, because like you said, it was an allegory about human trafficking, specifically trafficking of women, was control. It was control was
hmm
at the center of this movie, and I think they used it a little bit differently here, which is why I didn't mind it, and I
Okay.
understood what they were trying to say without saying it overtly. And again, this might be something that people who have an issue with talking about real issues have an issue with, but I don't have an issue with it because it's a real thing that happens in the world, and they talked about it without actually having to talk about it. They could have talked about it overtly, and I would have been fine with it. Yeah. Yeah. All right, we've been talking about this movie for about 50 over 50 minutes. I think we should transition to talking about the newest episode of Loki, unless you have anything else that you wanted to add, good or bad, about the movie.
I think that just what I said about it. I mean, the things that I'm trying to point out, they're not in any point, they are not in any way detract from the movie. I think that there's definitely a good amount of entertainment value that's there. Just like what I said in the non-spoiler review. I mean, it's not like it's not in the top 10 or not in the top 5 of MCU movies, but it's not like in the bottom half of it either. So it's kind of like in the top middle tier. I would say like above average. I would say in terms of the average MCU movie. I don't know what is an average MCU movie though right now because there's so many of them.
Yeah, this like I said, this is 24. So
yeah, so it's gonna be in the middle somewhere, a little bit above the middle, probably around But in any case, it doesn't really take me away from it. But there's still some issues with it that it's worth watching to see if the rest of the movies are going to be very similar or it's going to be much different, because it does kind of like have that like you said, Nathan, does have the kind of sense that it's like, this should have been done a few years back, with Black Widow, but it just came out in 2021 because of the pandemic, but also because of politics, basically, of women, movies. So, but yeah, I still think you should still go see it, and yeah, still very enjoyable, right?
Yeah. All right, so we should move on instead to a conversation about Loki episode 5, which was entitled "Journey into Mystery." So we, I guess, talk about our spoiler-free thoughts, and we can jump into the spoiler conversation. Spoiler thoughts are probably going to be very short because a lot of things happen in this episode. What did you think of this episode?
Before we do that, do you want to check to see if the stream is working? Because I'm checking to see if the stream is active right now. I just want to double check to see that.
I can see that I'm broadcasting at 14 frames per second on Facebook, 18 frames per second on Twitch, 23.98 frames per second on YouTube. I don't have access to the actual streams to see what they look like, so I don't know if we're actually broadcasting. But
yeah, we're paused right now in both of the Facebook and also in YouTube. It's not moving at all, so I'm not sure as to why that is the case.
It says that it has dropped 0.1% of the frames. But skip frames due to encoding lag. So there's a bit of an encoding lag is what it's saying.
Okay. All right.
But I don't know. Do you see anyone in the chat for anything? For Twitch or...
As of right now, there's really nothing right now. I think it just came back on YouTube. I don't know. On Facebook, it's kind of paused, but on YouTube, it was buffering, but now I don't know. Not really sure, but we can just keep going if you wish. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it looks like the video is a little bit frozen. I'm looking at YouTube on my phone. And for people, what we probably do is we'll probably edit this the live stream to cut out this conversation, so that people watching this back won't have this this part. But yeah, it looks like it definitely is streaming on YouTube, but it's maybe the video is lagged.
Okay.
I don't know what it looks like on Facebook. If it looks like anything on Facebook.
Okay.
check real quick. It says that it's live.
Okay.
Yeah, it's live on Facebook, and Twitch was already live. I mean, Twitch is probably the easiest. I'm not sure if are you in the Twitch console?
No, I'm not on the Twitch console right now.
Okay. Maybe if you can log in there to see if anyone is asking any questions, and we can, I guess, start the conversation about Loki. Well, actually, I will start with my thoughts while you're doing that. So I really like this episode. This is probably one of the best episodes of Marvel television that I've seen in any of the series that we've seen so far, including WandaVision. And I liked a lot of WandaVision, some really good television, but there's just so many. This episode could be entitled the Easter egg episode. For one, so that's one reason I liked it. The other reason I liked it was just the character development and the plot progression that happens in this movie. There are lots of interesting plot developments. There's definitely some interesting character progression in this movie because of the plot developments. So it's working on those two levels very synchronistically, in sync. In addition to that, the visuals were beautiful, like stunning. It could have been a Marvel movie. The amount of detail and money they put into the visuals, the cinematography was beautiful. The fight choreography, again, still is lagging in this show, and it seems it definitely is more apparent based upon what we saw today with the Black Widow movie, where the fight choreography was very tight. There isn't a whole lot of fighting in this episode. That's why it doesn't bring it down that much. There's like one fight scene with a bunch of actors, and we can talk about that when we get to the spoiler part. But overall, this was a really good episode for lots of different reasons. So what did you think?
I think that definitely it was. I think that episode 4 was, for me, was really well done. I think that I just enjoyed the love story of episode 4. I think that for episode 5, it brought me back to kind of like from that very big high of the love story to kind of more just the whole you're a kind of fish out of water type of thing. You don't know what's going on, and then also you just kind of you see a lot of the, just like from the post-credit scene from last week. You were definitely compelled to kind of watch what happens next week, the following week. And so I think the whole series has been very compelling in many different sort of ways. That's very amazing. From the end of episode, from at the endings of each episode just makes you want to watch next week, like immediately, because it just is so compelling. And even in this one, again, at the very end of the episode, it's just so compelling. You're like, I can't wait till next week, to see what finally happens. So they've really done a good job of kind of keeping the audience at the edge of their seats for many different sorts of reasons. So that's what I really like about this particular episode, and that, there was another type of reason to keep you watching, not just because of the love story in the fourth one, and then the plot twists and stuff like that, but for this one, it was more of, okay, let's kind of, like you said, uncover all the Easter eggs and kind of like try to get to the final episode, but at least you're still at the edge of your seat, kind of wondering what's going to happen, and it's really well done, like you said.
Yeah. So as I said, it's difficult to talk about this episode without going into spoilers. So we are going to go into spoiler talk. I think we both liked the episode. Go see the episode if you haven't seen the episode. It came out on Wednesday, but a lot of people can't watch the show in the middle of the week. But so if you haven't seen it, tap out now and come back. Or if you don't care about spoilers, we're going to do spoiler. But so spoiler alert. All right. So What do you want to talk about first? I mean, I'm going to start talking about some of the Easter eggs, which was just so cool, and other channels have already talked about a lot of them. They even found some that I didn't notice while watching them. But what do you want to talk about?
I mean, I really liked Richard E. Grant's performance as the older Loki. I think that he was definitely, goofy costume, yes, very goofy costume, but he sold it, and it's like, and just very brilliant actor in like selling this type of cartoony type of character into someone that's like very compelling. And then his story about how he basically was on the ship when Thanos came, and basically he escaped. He escaped, and then he went to a distant planet and just stayed there for a long time. And and what got him to get in trouble with the TVA was because he missed his brother. And so I think that having that kind of old Loki with some wisdom was really, really compelling. I really, really like that. The alligator Loki was just funny. Was just overall just humorous and funny. Marvel taking a big risk about carrot, an alligator Loki. I mean, come on, people will be like, "What's going on? Why do you have an alligator as Loki?" It's like kind of weird that way. And then and then just the other boastful Loki did not really have too much to do, unfortunately. After that, and that we could talk about why that is. But Kid Loki definitely also has some really interesting perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's what they were trying to go for. That he fulfilled his glorious purpose, because that's what he said at the end. Because Lokis are always looking for their glorious purpose. Yeah, I think I would probably rank them the same way. The Lokis that he most interacts with, because there's a bunch of more Lokis.
But yeah, I just think that Richard E. Grant's performance was really, really good as a guest star,
including President
and
Loki.
just like
But,
his whole
and
it's almost
Richard
like
Grant was
he also
basically
fulfilled his redemption
MVP of
arc
this
almost,
episode,
at
like
the very
Florence
end
Pugh
of
was
the
MVP
episode,
of the movie,
doing that
of the
self-sacrifice.
Black Widow
So
movie.
I think that's definitely
he was
again
doing
really, really
some great work here, and all in the space of 45 minutes, you felt for him.
Mm-hmm.
You cared about him.
Yes,
and you cared that he died because he in his sacrifice. So that's amazing to do. It's really great writing, but it's also very great acting as well, for you to feel that much for the character in 45 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. He owned it. I mean, he just owned it, and like a lesser actor would be like, why am I in this dopey costume?
Mm-hmm.
Like with the long horns and the and the underwear, it's like distracting, but he really sold it, and it's just like, and it definitely was compelling. And like you said, Nathan, you felt for him. You really you much more so than when Loki died in Infinity War. You thought that Tom Hiddleston did a great job with at the beginning of Infinity War with his character depth. I mean, he did. That's beautiful. I mean, that's some beautiful work that he did. Selling that to the audience, and making people really feel get a punch in the gut by him dying at the hands of Thanos. But I thought that was good. But him being Richard E. Grant just doing that is just really, really good. Plus, I think that we saw also Mobius coming back, from the dead almost. So, it's nice to kind of see him again. But you kind of figured at the end of episode 4 that he was going to be back somehow, some way, because, he's also been brilliant as well. He's just the beats, the interactions with Loki. You just can't, that's just an amazing character. And Owen Wilson has, again, done some really, really good acting as well. So, probably he's really been a good actor. Sometimes, he's in comedies that are pretty forgettable and kind of raunchy or whatever. But I mean, he really does do a good job with any of his character's always fun. But I think that not only is he kind of embracing the fun aspect of who he plays, but it's really compelling stuff that he's really bringing out through his acting. So kudos to him too. I think
after Rashidi Grant, as you said, would be for me the alligator Loki, even though it's not a I don't know, I'm not talking about like performance, just like the characters that were just more interesting to me or compelling to me. Then I feel like Kid Loki and Bozo Loki are tied for me. I think they miscast the Kid Loki guy, and they're building the Young Avengers, so he's probably going to show up again because I think he's on the Young Avengers. But that kid didn't seem like a Loki to me. Didn't seem like Loki to me. Like Loki to me is like a kid. He didn't seem as slippery or whatever. The actor didn't really sell his part as well, and I don't know. It's hard to sort of beat up on a child actor, but I think this is a child actor who has like a following and everything. It has like shows or whatever. So the people. So it's not like he's like a new to acting. I didn't necessarily enjoy anything that he did in this episode. Even when he was giving him the sword, the way that he held it was kind of clumsy. I mean, it was just like a second. So I was glad to see him go. And they focused on Grant at the very end. So. Yeah, and Bozo Loki was just there as sort of like a plot device. The plot device being that Loki's going to Loki, and he portrays the king. So that they didn't have much to do, or he didn't have much to do. In the grand scheme of things, that and also be boastful, so we understand why he's boastful Loki. Because apparently he beat Captain America, Captain America,
right,
Iron Man, and he had all the Infinity Stones, which is a hilarious line for him to say, and it was hilarious that their reaction to him saying that. So, yeah.
Right. And I think that it's definitely. I think that I didn't mind him too much, but I think that comparatively speaking to all the great acting that's happening around him, I think that he's definitely overshadowed. And it's different. I mean, it's really tough to have break any type of standout performances. If you're in front of the camera with all these other actors that are really, really good. It's hard. I mean, he did what he needed to do, and I think that that's definitely good on its own. I also want to mention the interaction between Renslayer and Sylvie. Great stuff. I mean, you just didn't know what's going to happen between them two, whether or not Sylvie's going to kill her or Renslayer was going to double cross her, and then she just kind of say, okay, you're not going to kill me. I'm just going to prove myself, and basically that's what happened. So I think that up until that point you just didn't know, and I think that was really, really good keeping the audience kind of guessing as to like what type of schemes or what type of overall plan, either of them are going to have, because they do have duplicitous type of thinking, both of them. So having that type of exchange was at the beginning of episode 5
so
was actually
the name of this episode is
was actually
Journey
really,
into
really
Mystery,
intriguing,
which is a reference to the comic book where Thor and Loki shows up. But that's not, of course, where the Easter eggs end. We also get Frog Loki, Frog Thor.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name off the top of my head. It's like, it feels like Thorn or something like that, or something like that. So we get a glimpse of Frog Thor. We get a glimpse of
I don't
so
remember.
many things. The Thanos copter, which I didn't see when I first saw the show, but it was pointed out when I looked on the internet. One of the things I did notice is they have like a flying saucer in the background, Golden Gate Bridge. They're random things that are like Easter eggs for Marvel, and also Easter eggs for like our world, like outside of Marvel. So the library at Alexandria was there, the Sphinx with a nose, because the Sphinx, famously lost his nose, so that was interesting. So yeah, it was cool to like spot all the things that were being thrown at the end of time, the dustbin to be eaten up by Eliath, which again is another reference from the comic books.
Right.
Eliath is an actual character in the comics. He basically is who he was in this show. Amorphous cloud monster, temporal cloud monster. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, one other thing that, of course, the Avengers Tower was there. There was not Avengers Tower. It was actually, I think I saw online that it was actually when Tony Stark was broke or their bankruptcy, he basically sold the building to a Chinese company. So the name of it is the Chinese company's name. And so what happened was, right. So it's like a kind of like a culture corporation for King to cover. So you can see rocking the hints of King, whether or not he does show up at episode 6. We'll see whether it's post credit scene or not at the very end, but when Sylvie and Loki go into that space. I don't know what they call it.
It's past the void. So like Slayer was trying to convince her that there's nothing past the void. That the timekeepers are trying to unravel the end of time, and when they unravel it, there'll be no more Nexus events. Basically, time TVA propaganda that has probably nothing to do with reality. So she comes up with this plan to enchant the Eliath so she can get past him, because basically a guard dog for the end of time, or what's past the end of time. Or they might not even be at the end of time. They might just be what the person who actually created the TVA has told the TVA. So there might just be more timeline in front of that, and he doesn't want anyone messing with his timeline in front of that, or because that's what Kang did as the conqueror. He conquered large swaths of the universe through time. So maybe that's basically the beginning of his empire. He doesn't want anyone from the past messing with his empire. So that's why he created the TVA to prune all these things. He didn't create branch realities that would eventually mess with his empire.
Yeah, and I just wonder, where is it going to all end? Because we know that there's going to be season 2. So whether or not, don't try to get it twisted that you might not see some sort of resolution. You might even see like a cliffhanger at the end of episode 6. So that's something that's very intriguing in that. You did know at the end of WandaVision, you did know at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier that there were going to be some type of resolution, but there's no there might not be like some sort of resolution at the end of this series because of the fact that it's going to go into a season 2. So yeah, it's going to be very intriguing to see where that's going to lead us, whether or not it's going to be some sort of resolution, or is it going to be like cliffhanger, wait for season 2.
My guess is they'll tie up some things. And some things will be left dangling, like whether or not Sylvie and Loki will go off together and be together. Will be left dangling. If this was a limited series, they would probably kill her off. Actually, the fact that he finally found love and then he would of course have to lose it if it was a limited series. The fact that they're moving on to another season means that I think she will show up again, and maybe some other players that we saw will show up again. Maybe Grant faked his death again. Maybe
that could be the case.
Yeah,
that might be the case. Yes.
Yeah. I think we definitely will see Kid Loki again, especially if they're going to add him to Young Avengers. So I think a lot of these people are going to show up again. And I think we'll get some sort of resolution. If not who the big bad is, we'll figure out who that person is. You have any speculation about who's in the manor at the end of time?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, geez, yeah. I mean, I have a inkling there's going to be some sort of King appearance because it's been leading to that, because of Renslayer being involved. And that Renslayer knows more than she lets on, and I think that's and the fact that there could be some sort of rivalry that's going to be happening within, like almost like a civil war within the TVA between Renslayer and then you have Hunter B-15 and Mobius. So there might be some sort of kind of like separate plot in that, because the TVA is huge. I mean, you saw some of the world building that was involved in the first couple of episodes. So I think that you might see that, and also the further development of the relationship between Loki and Sylvie. We're all kind of rooting for Loki right now and Sylvie to like get together, basically, and ride off to the sunset. But there's going to be some, whether or not this is some sort of elaborate Loki scheme, that would be a big shock to me if that was the case. So.
Well, I don't know if it's in a Loki. Well, it could be an elaborate Loki scheme, but it's not the Loki that we've been following. I think the Loki that we've been following, and I mean, this might sound sappy, his glorious purpose now is Sylvie. So I don't think he's trying to like conquer or anything. Or he found something that he never found before. He never had real love like this before. I think right. he's a changed person. I think he's very sincere about the fact when she says, how do I know she's just not going to stab me in the back at the last moment? And right. I think he's very clear about why he thinks that he has changed, and we've seen him change even more. And I think I heard someone comment on this over the last couple of days. We've seen him develop even more in these 5 episodes than we saw him develop over all the movies that he's been in. Even though I think that he had a really good arc in all those movies, and like you said, his death scene actually meant something. He is this Loki, having not gone through all those experiences, I think is even healthier than the Loki who sacrificed himself in Infinity War. So. Yeah, it's good.
But I wonder if they kind of and this is perfectly fine. I didn't have a problem with it. Whether or not because Mobius kind of showed him his future, that he was kind of more self-reflective, and also with the interaction that he had with Sif, whether or not that also made him even more self-reflective and more redemptive. So it was kind of like in many ways, like I explained in previous live streams, that. It's almost like an acceleration academy for him in terms of his redemption arc, and that's perfectly fine, and that's all well and good. I think that I think that they actually, because of that, they probably have done, like you said, they've done a better job actually of kind of fleshing him out and also kind of make him more compelling and redemptive, more so than what he did in the movies. And then in the movies he did. I mean, he was beloved in the movies as one of the big villains, but yeah, in this one, it's kind of even more compelling than it was in the movies. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, you say the Sif scene. You say the what was the other thing was the besides the Sif scene, the seeing himself die. I think right. I don't think it was any one of those things. I think it was the culmination. Mm-hmm. It was the culmination of those things over the last 5 episodes that has gotten him to this emotional place, right. Including his feelings that cropped up about Sylvie, which he wasn't expecting. So I think it's the culmination of all those things put together is why he's a healthier, more well-adjusted, less full of himself Loki. Even in this episode, besides what's happening with Sylvie, the fact that he's confronted with himself over and over and over again, and his failures over and over and over again, and his shortcomings over and over and over again, even in this episode, that has probably informed who he thinks he is.
Mm.
The fact that all these versions of him couldn't escape because they kept getting in their own way. There's so many versions of them, so many versions of him, and he has magic. If they actually cooperated, they probably wouldn't be there, but they can't because it's not his nature. So he doesn't want to be that. And the kid even mentions this. Whenever we try to be better than this,